Thank you so much for taking the time for this interview. I don't know if you remember me. I spoke with you after your back in stage one. I can't remember which team you were playing against. It was the lower finals, I think. I just wanted to start the interview by sort of asking you on how do you feel about having played Abyss in an official for the first time? I was pretty excited to see you guys pull it out. I was hoping to have seen it the last time during the grand finals of EMEA. Unfortunately, you guys never got to the fifth map. So just thought process initially on it.
I think wasn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we lost a lot of rounds we shouldn't have. I think we also won some we shouldn't have. So it's kind of give and take on that.
Yep.
We've been practicing for a while. But I think the officials always different to practice. So I think there's a lot of stuff we can learn from. A lot of ways they pressured us and made us feel uncomfortable in rounds where I think we're unable to just play in a way where we weren't giving picks. I think we just ended up in too many 4v5s, particularly on defense. And I think we were a little awkward on attack, like not quite as smooth with our transitions
Mhm.
around the map. So it's just one of those things where it's just there's a few things that I feel like I'd covered in practice and talked about, but obviously an official is a bit different. So a bit of re-going over stuff we'd already talked about, but also there's obviously a lot to learn from being an official. So it always feels different to practice.
I see. I wanted to ask because we are seeing like quite an uptick in terms of the number of Abyss games that are happening, and I'm curious because sort of the thought process behind when you get a new map that comes into the pool and you have to like sort of work through it. Do you think you're sort of you guys are pretty close, like spot on in terms of like when you see your homework versus how the other teams are prep for Abyss? Do you think you're pretty there?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with what we have overall. I
Mhm.
think we can expand on it a little bit, and have a few more options. But I think I definitely don't think we've misstepped. It's always obviously when the new map comes out, it's always like who's going to work out the meta first,
Yeah.
and who's going to kind of get that advantage. Even though we lost today, and I don't think we're that far off. And the Viper's still good. We've seen other teams playing Viper. It seems to
Mhm.
be two metas coming out. It seems to be what we're doing with the Viper, which seems to be about not like 30% of teams, and then the other 70% are doing what DRX were doing with like the double initiator thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a massive difference right now. Maybe one will turn out to be better than the other, but I'm definitely not thinking to myself, crap, we kind of we picked the wrong one or anything like that.
I mean, when I first saw the map, I'll admit I didn't think of Yoru like that. That wasn't like the first thing that came to my mind. Like that, this is the go-to duelist. But I think the meta sort of evolved in this map where it seems like the top teams are all playing Yoru. We saw Durka on it today. We saw I think Miniboo was playing too in the previous series as well. Yeah, so it's just really interesting. Okay, so going into the series against DRX, I was just sort of curious because I looked up how many times you guys have faced DRX, not just this year, but it seems like for the last two champions, you guys have always, or rather, Fnatic has always faced DRX in some capacity. In 2022, DRX knocked you guys out. You knocked them out in 2023, and now you get to face them in 2024. In terms of preparation for this series, was there anything different that you were perhaps more wary on, or anything in particular that you prepared for DRX?
We're always preparing for opponents, always doing the anti-strat, but nothing really. Like obviously, I can't comment on if it was different to previous years
Yeah.
for this team. But obviously, I'm very familiar with them coaching in Pacific last year.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think you just know like DRX are a team that like to have their game plan. They like to have their set strats. They like to have their kind of methodical play style. It's very different to preparing for maybe like a paper Rex who just kind of run, play really fast.
Yeah.
So you get a sense of what kind of team there are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there wasn't anything special or unique to our preparation for this game compared to any other game. Just the same solid prep that we always go in with.
Did the how do I put it? Did the level that DRX show meet your expectation, or like, where exactly did it sort of land?
Um, no, I think Buzz played really, really well. But obviously, you always know you always say, "Oh, Buzz is a great player." You know, he's going to be able to turn up and hit his shots on the right day. So I think Buzz played really well.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like I think it was more on us. I think we were playing a little timid. I feel like we could have just gone in and fought together more. And I think if you compare that DRX game
Yeah.
compared to all our other games we've played in, since we got Hero. Basically, it was just we just weren't fighting together. We weren't going in. We weren't confident. Like, hey, let's run in and trade out here and use utility. It felt a little bit slow and a little bit sluggish. So yeah, it always feels bad to say the other team didn't do anything crazy, but I mean, obviously they played well. I mean, they actually smashed us on Lotus, and well, I think we were on like a 6 or 7 game winning streak on Lotus till today. So they played well. I think Foxy actually, did really well in the chamber. I think there's more individual stuff from them. They just hit some nice shots, and we were a little sloppy.
Generally, from what I've seen in EMEA, most of the teams that you guys tend to face are more sort of they tend to stick together. So when you do battle them, you don't really have that sort of issue where individuals are popping off as much as an issue. Do you think that was part of the reason why you think in this particular series the boys were a little quieter because you had to deal with a player that was individually having such a good game?
I don't think it was too much to do with that. I think they were throwing some nice utility for Buzz, giving him some support, particularly on Abyss. I remember there's a few nice KO flashes. I remember hitting us and stuff like that. But no, I don't think it's anything crazy like that with the fact that he's playing individually. In fact, I think he was playing quite well with his team. I think Foxy was playing a little bit more individually on Lotus, but that's how Chamber works. So no, I don't think that really played too much into it.
Okay, fair enough. Heading into your next series, like how are you anticipating it? What exactly can you take away from this series that you would like to prepare and look ahead for your next series?
I mean, it should be crew. I've heard off first, but anything can happen. Billy weren't terrible when we played them. Obviously, they got quite a few ground stuff from behind. But no, I think again, like crew's one of those teams. They have Kesnet, who is an incredible player as well. So we just can't. We need to learn like whatever Buzz and Foxy did to us today on those maps. We can't let Kesnet do that because Kesnet is, in some ways, he's scarier. To be honest with you, he's a very good player. So just taking the most out of that, just learning ourselves to make our own game tighter and better. Because obviously, if you just play well together and you have good protocols where you don't give the kills when you're not in a position to get the kills, then those guys can't pop off. So it's just just focusing more on ourselves really. But it will take learning experiences away for sure.
Stylistically, do you think your team, as a head coach, do you think your team feels comfortable dealing with teams like that where they have these individuals that can completely take over a series?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we just beat Vitality. I can't remember, like 6 maps to 1 since we played them recently in the last 2 series. And I mean, they just had safe popping off the whole time. Like that's how they were playing. So I think we're more than capable of doing that. I think, happy either way. I don't think one style is particularly more annoying than other. Maybe like a team like Paper X again, like where they have multiple people just going for individual plays is a little bit more frustrating sometimes. But comparing like teams that just have one really strong like star player to teams that more balanced across the board, I don't think there's a huge difference.
Okay. Coming into this tournament, Fnatic was ranked pretty highly in terms of the potential to win champions. Do you personally agree with the sentiment? Like, do you think this team's at a level where you guys are absolutely like, you guys are ready to win champs, you guys are at the level, or do you think you need to step up a bit?
I think we're definitely in contention. We do need to step up as well. But it's one of those weird ones where I look across the board and obviously Gen G is the obvious one that kind of stands out, but they also lost today.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where it's like I think there's probably a pool of about 5 or 6 teams that could potentially win champs, and I would put us as one of them.
Yeah.
Even after today, but we just have to show up and play our own game.
Okay. Aside from just showing up, do you have anything specific in mind that you sort of are trying to hone in on that you want to fix for the next next series?
I think we just need to be confident and listen to each other more. It's kind of a boring answer, but just when we listen and go with our utility and trust each other, it's always going to be better. I think there was a few moments today where, particularly out of the Abyss, we had some players who came out feeling like they weren't listened to and stuff like that. So I think it's just going to be, making sure we do that more. And if we do that, then that's when I think we're in those 5 or 6 teams that can win the event.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you as well, because it's like coming off of a loss, it's really easy to just sort of hone in on the negatives and say like, we did this wrong, we did this wrong. You know, there's like all these mistakes happen. I kind of wanted to ask instead though, did you what are the positives that you can take away from the series? Like anything in particular that sort of comes to mind?
I think the positive is just you can learn from it. I think we had some good moments individually. I think Alpha played really well in that Lotus, despite us getting so few rounds. So it's good to see him back in form. But I mean, Alpha's a scary player to play against in his own right. So he's always going to be there. Always going to be popping.
Yeah.
So it's good to see him back because I think he was our lowest rated player after the Billy game, which obviously doesn't say that much.
Yeah.
And it's like that, but. No, I think that and just the boys learning. I think the boys are in a good headspace. Like obviously we've had 10 minutes or whatever just to have a chat, and it's like, look, boys, we lost, but no one's sulking or anything like that. I think we're in a better headspace as a team than we were earlier in the year, where a loss felt really, really heavy. Obviously it doesn't feel good, but we're in a spot where it's like, hey, let's learn from this, move forward, and I think we have a good environment for that right now. So that's definitely a positive.
Awesome. Speaking of environment, I spoke with Boaster after you guys' win in EMEA Stage 2, and he was pretty happy to talk about your newest addition, Edgar, as well, your performance coach. And I wanted to ask you personally, like in terms of just coach to coach, as a new addition to your coaching staff, like how has he been as an addition? Like what impact has he had on the team?
He's been really, really good. I think he's really good at addressing the boys when they need to just going to step up and be a bit more focused and get in the right headspace. Obviously, it's very tense and stressful job, and requires a lot of hours practicing in day in and day out. So the boys and myself included are going to sometimes always get a bit cranky and in the not best mood or have something going on. So he's really, really proactive at getting onto. He's like, hey, like I've noticed there's something's a little off with the boys. He's really good at noticing that, and he just addresses it straight away. He just grabs them for a quick talk, and you can always tell like, yeah, Edgar's had a chat to him because he's kind of flipped it around and it's been a lot better. So no, he's been a really great addition, and obviously it's just good to have backup in that regards, because obviously as the coach, I have to manage the performance side of things as well a little bit. Like I have to keep the boys on track and keep them in the right headspace and make sure that they have a growth mindset and stuff like that. So it's always good to have someone that can back you up. That's not really going to get dragged into the tactical side. Because sometimes as the head coach, I'm trying to like focus on like the mindset and that, and then I can get dragged back into but we should have nanoed this, or we didn't swing this together. Whereas like Edgar is obviously he's a performance coach, so he's not going to get dragged into anything tactical. So it's always good to have that support and like backup and someone who's just purely focused on that. Even for matches, like obviously I'm looking at all the tactics and how we move and how we're taking fights, and obviously Edgar's not sitting next to me now, but when Edgar was sitting next to me in EMEA, he was just looking at the 5 player cams and like reading their body language, and he'd just say, yeah, I think that, like, prop up this player or just say something like that. So he's really good. He's really attentive and really observant, which is obviously all great qualities to have from a coach.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you one more sort of big question as a coach as well. Coming in to 2024, obviously you've had the sort of unenviable task of taking on this former championship winning roster with such a high pedigree, and you sort of the expectation is that you guys are going to continue your winning ways. In terms of what you've managed to succeed in achieving this year, what do you think the previous roster in 2023 was missing that you bring in 2024 as the new head coach?
I think the one thing that I focus more on is I try and give the boys a bit more autonomy and try and grow them as a person and as a player. What I mean by this is I think that like last year, they had a lot of great systems in places, and they kind of like just fed information to the players, which worked really, really well.
Yeah.
But my coaching philosophy is I always think that like if I improve the player and improve the person, then and give them the tools, then they can go and like learn themselves. So obviously I can't sit next to a player 24 hours a day and say, I want you to like watch this VOD with me. Let's talk about this. Let's think about this. So I've tried to like give them the tools and try and improve their way of working by themselves. Which I think has showed some of the players have said that was helpful and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I did. It's kind of like the hard road. It's obviously kind of easier just to force them the information, which I still do. Like it's not like we don't do that. We force feed them a lot of information, but I've tried to kind of just develop them a freer
rein.
Yeah, not too much. To be honest, it got reined in a little bit after the first half of the year, but there's still a bit of that where I want them to be free, and I want them to come up with stuff themselves, because I believe like I can have the greatest ideas in the world, but if you come up with an idea yourself, you're going to be more invested. You're going to be more bought in, and you're going to try and fix that. Whereas if it's just exciting, like even me as a coach, if I make a strat, I'm more invested in it than if Boaster makes a strat, and that's just like human nature.
True.
So yeah, it's just one of those things where I want the boys to just kind of be invested, be the best version of themselves they can be.
I'm glad to hear it. As I wrap this interview, I have one last question, which is just a quick one. So, as you head into the next series, is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to showing off that we haven't seen yet, perhaps from Fnatic?
I think what maps we play. Yeah, I mean we have some cool stuff we can still show. Depends what maps come up, but I think we've been pretty creative this year. As far as moving the comps around and then trying some new stuff. So there's always some cool tech in there. We're always cooking something. But obviously I'm not going to tell you what that is. So you'll have to wait and see. Not a bit, but yeah, there's some cool stuff that I'm looking forward to seeing in the match, and some new strats and some new combos and stuff like that.
I'm looking forward to it. As usual, thank you very much for your time, Elma, and I hope I get a chance to speak with you. Best of luck for your next series.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.